Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Tech Gamers World. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can quickly and easily bypass the digital rights management lockout chip on a Nintendo Entertainment System. So stay tuned, click that like button, we'll be right back. Let's do this. Okay everyone, welcome back. So as I said in the introduction to this video, I'm going to be showing you today how to bypass the digital right management or DRM lockout chip on a Nintendo Entertainment System. So this is a classic Nintendo Entertainment System. This was made in 1985. Now, Nintendo at the time followed suit with some of the other hardware manufacturers at the time and implemented what was called a DRM solution. A DRM is a digital rights management solution. Now, digital right management was used to prevent unauthorized games from being played on certain hardware. In the case of the Nintendo, that would be unlicensed games or games that were not meant for the region in which the Nintendo was designed for. So in this case, this is an NTSC Nintendo, or as we'll call it, the American or North American Nintendo, which means it could not play Japanese Nintendo games. Now, they did that for a variety of reasons. So, why did Nintendo do that? They wanted to keep their intellectual property, safe. People were making games not designed by Nintendo, stuff like that, hacks, bypasses. They were trying to prevent all of that. So people naturally came up with a solution for it, which I'm going to show you right now. So again, like I said, this is 1985's Nintendo Entertainment System. We all know it by the iconic gray and white with the two controllers, the power and reset button, and the spot where you would input your cartridge, push it in, and turn on the system. So what do we have to do to bypass the DRM on this piece of hardware? Well, we have to open it up. So let's talk about that a little bit here. On the bottom of the Nintendo Entertainment System, there are 6 spots where you have to remove screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, these weren't just regular screws. They were special screws that were designed by Nintendo to prevent unauthorized repairs. So you couldn't just open them with a normal Phillips head or flathead screwdriver or hex head, Torx head, anything like that. You needed a special screwdriver. So naturally, over the years, third parties have popped up to remove these screws with a special tool. So this is it. You need one of these. This is called a game bit, and basically it's a special head inside that is notched in that has special teeth in it to grab on to the security screw to remove it. So these screwdrivers are readily available online. If you go on Google or Amazon and search GameBit, GAMEBIT, you will see these. And you can buy, honestly, the cheapest one you can find. Alternatively, if you want, you can just buy the heads as well. I found it cheaper just to buy these. So they do come in 2 different ones. I have another one here. So that's one. And they come in this one that has a notched end. And this one is smaller. So it depends on which system you're opening, the right one. Just try them both. It's always going to be one or the other. The game bit screws were used on, the security screws were used on Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, GameCube, and some of the Game Boys, I believe, as well. And I believe some of the NES cartridges used them. So let's go ahead here and get this case open. So I've gone ahead and removed 5 of the 6 screws because you don't want to watch me do that. It gets boring. So I left just one in here. So I've got my game bit. Just going to stick it in there, unscrew it. What I prefer to do is to magnetize the end of the game bit so that it makes the screw nice and easy to get out. And here it is. So as you can see there, it's a little hard to see because it's so small. There is the screw head, and this is a security screw. Now, you don't need to use these security screws. If you're going to be keeping your Nintendo and don't care if it doesn't have all the original pieces to it, you can certainly go to your local hardware store and just acquire a normal headed screw, Phillips or flathead, to replace the ones here. I recommend a Phillips head screw. So I'm going to go ahead here and put that one aside. Okay, so we are ready to open this up. So it's very simple to open the Nintendo Entertainment System here. We're just going to flip it over. And once you have all the screws out, the top cover just pops right off. Now, show you here what we have to do next. There are a number of screws that need to be removed to get this metal cover off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Depending on how many times your case has been opened, some or all of these screws may be missing. Alternatively, you may only see 4 screws holding it in. So you may only see 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. Sometimes these are not there. Sometimes they are. It all depends on if your case has been opened or not. So in my case, I've already opened this one before, so I know where the screws are. I'm going to go ahead and grab my Phillips head here to start disassembling this. Now, you want to be very careful when you're doing this, not to break any wires, break any connectors, stuff like that. If you did have a warranty on this particular Nintendo, you would have already voided it by opening the case. But since we all know that there are no more warranties on Nintendo Entertainment Systems, we don't have to worry about that. This one screw here is a little stuck, but I'll get it. So we're just going to keep going here. Back all these screws out. I recommend, if you're going to be taking apart any kind of entertainment system, anything whatsoever, always get yourself a like a mat to work on, because it's got these nice storage bins up here. There we go, we got that out. All right, so we're going to pop this cover off here, place it aside, and now we are ready to continue on. While you're taking apart your system, it's always a good idea to check that everything works, especially on the part that drops down here, because as you can see, it is spring-loaded on the sides here, and you want to make sure that it clicks and holds down. So to remove this whole part, basically just more screws here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as luck would have it with Nintendo, these screws are all basically the same size. Just going to go ahead here and take them out. Now again, you'll see that if someone's opened this before, you may see different screws in there. They may not all be the same, but generally they should all be pretty much, the same size. All right, let's see here. Let's get this side 2 out. If your system is older and has been exposed to moisture, humidity, God forbid, water, smokers, you name it, some of these things may be starting to show signs of rust or oxidation. As let's be realistic here. This system was designed in 1985. It is now 2023 at the making of this video, and these systems are mighty old. So, you never know what they're going to look like when you open them. I've repaired systems for people that have been heavy smokers, and I will not lie to you, it is disgusting when you open up their computers. I've had more so seen it with computers because they are more greater airflow than these kind of systems. Where I've opened up someone's computer who's a smoker and you can't even tell what's what inside of it. It's yellow. It's gross. There's no airflow. It's just bad. And don't ever let your inner, don't ever get like that. And if you're a smoker, quit smoking. Do yourself a favor. Some of these screws here are pretty stripped out. But that's all right. We can work around that. Trying to get these out here. There goes one. So these are longer than the others. So we'll put these here so we don't lose sight of them. I may need to get something here to pull this one out with. They're not wanting to come out, but fortunately I've got everything I need. There we go. All right, sorry, I knocked into the phone there. So you can see I got another one out. Okay, so next up, we need to lift up this entire assembly here to get to the motherboard. So fortunately, that's pretty easy to do here. We need to take out these screws down here. Sometimes they're in there good. I need actually a bigger head here. Let's see what I got. Let's change it to, this one will work. There we go. All right. So if you're like me, I'm pretty good at remembering what screws go where, so I can put them anywhere I want. If you're not good at remembering what goes where, I highly suggest you come up with a system that works for you. You can write it down, whatever you need. Okay, so here we have this coming free here. Now I'm trying to see if I want to take this off or not. I feel like I should, but let's see if it actually wants to come off. I think we can do without it, actually. Nah, I'm going to need to take it off here. Well, nah, I don't need to. So you can leave this on if you don't want to break it off. For some reason mine is, there it goes. Okay, I got it. I thought it was stuck for a minute there, but it came off. So I took off the carry case here. Now, for this part, these cables, I suggest you recommend, and I recommend you disconnect them if you want to. You just have to pry up these parts here to get them off. But I don't necessarily need to. So what I need to do is get this cover off, which is just like so. And I'm going to gently tip it to the back. So here is the motherboard for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now what I'm going to do here is make this easier for you to see is spin it around. And I'll go ahead here and zoom in on what we need to disconnect here so that we know, so you can see it in close up here. So I'm going to take my phone out. So this is the circuit board designed by Nintendo to be their digital rights management lockout preventer, basically, chief, boss, whatever you want to call it. So we need to disconnect one of the pins on this to bypass the DRM. So we're going to do that right now. So let's get back in position here. And I will zoom in so that you can see how easy this actually is to do. Let's zoom in a little more here. Okay, so here is the DRM chip. It is 3193A, 1985 Nintendo. It says on it. It is down below the larger chip right here, and it is this one right here. So here's what we need to do. You need to disconnect the fourth pin from the left on the bottom. So to do that, here, let's very gently pull this capacitor down out of the way here so you can see. So we have fourth pin from the left that we're going to disconnect here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this one right here, what you need to do is get it in there, pry it away from the chip. And it's a little bit tricky to do. So I'm going to grab a different tool to do this with. Okay, so this one should work. So like I said, it is the fourth pin from the left, and we can see where I've already started to break it. It's very easy to separate here. It's just a matter of, it's very small and outside of, the view here. So just have to see what I'm doing here. Let me see what I can get to work on this guy here. There we go. So what I did was I separated the fourth pin from the left off the chip. So that basically essentially bypasses the DRM. Now, what you'd want to do is make sure that it is bent all the way back and fully separated from the chip, like it is right here. Now, let's go ahead and reassemble the Nintendo, because we are basically done. You'll see some other people who cut the chip, the pin away from the chip. You can do that as well. I find it's easiest just to bend it back, because in the event that you'd ever want to reconnect it for some reason, you can always put it back in with a little bit of maneuvering. Okay, so let's go ahead now and reassemble this motherboard and get this Nintendo back together. So let's talk a little bit here about the chip and why you may not want to necessarily do what I just did. So the DRM chip existed, like I said, for a reason. It was there to prevent unauthorized, unlicensed games from working on the Nintendo system. Now, that came with a couple considerations for people who made unlicensed games. They created their own bypass for this without having to open it and actually remove the pin off the chip. So let's talk about that for a little bit, why that can cause a bit of a headache for some people if you did this. So as I put this back, we'll talk about that here. So some unlicensed game manufacturers created cartridges for their games. Inside of the cartridge for their game, they actually went and made a chip on it or a capacitor on it that would send a low voltage signal to the DRM chip inside the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, that can cause problems for your system if you've gone ahead and removed the pin off the DRM chip, because that voltage that is sent by the games, unlicensed games, no longer gets to the chip. So the game will actually keep continuing to send a signal to the chip. Now, if the chip is not there, so to speak, because the pin has been disconnected, it can actually cause the game, the unlicensed game, to overheat and melt into the Nintendo system or break it. So you have to be careful of that. If you're going to be playing a lot of unlicensed games, you may need to consider not necessarily doing this. But if you want to play licensed Nintendo games that were made in Japan, the original Japan versions, on your North American Nintendo, certainly this is the way to do it. But again, do your research before you play any unlicensed games on a Nintendo, because I'd hate to see you break your Nintendo console by doing this. Again, no warranty expressed or implied. So we just got to get this back in now, which is always fun. There we go. Got that back in. So now we've gone ahead and reset that. Let's get this back down on its board that it's sitting on. Make sure its holes are lined up. And we'll go ahead and re-secure those 4 screws to the board here. They were the longer ones, so we need these. And we'll switch back to this one here. So we've got our Phillips head screw. And resecuring the game cartridge holder. One, two. Three. Four. There we go. Alrighty. So we've gone ahead now and finished that. We're going to go ahead here, put the protective cover back on to protect the motherboard. So let's go ahead here and put some of these screws back in. So you'll know when you have everything lined up correctly if the main cover sits flush on the board and the case. If it doesn't, don't be afraid to retake it apart and do it again. Take your time, get it right, because you don't want to bend the motherboard or accidentally break anything else on it. And we'll go ahead and secure the one last side here. There we go. And one to go here. And there we go. Now we can go ahead here and put the cover back on. Checking the fit, the operation. Well, before I re-secure it down, check the fit, check that the cartridge drop works, which it does, and set this down like that. And we'll go ahead here, get out our game bit, and re-secure the case. Now at this point you would re-secure the case with all 5 screws. I'm just going to use one for demonstration purposes. I put the security screw in, tighten it down with my game bit, and that is it. You are now ready to play region-free games and other various fun activities on your 1985 Nintendo Entertainment System. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. As always, please drop a comment down below if there's anything you'd like to see or any questions. Please click that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to have new and exciting content coming soon. Thanks a lot, everybody, and I will see you around. Keep on gaming.